The night began like any other. A deep, quiet dark settled over the world. Stars blinked in the endless black, and there it was. The moon, a familiar silver coin in the sky. It hung there, silent and still, a friendly nightlight for a sleeping planet. We looked up at it and felt nothing, nothing at all. It was just the moon, a rock that circled our world. We told stories about it, wrote songs about it. We thought we knew it. We were so wrong. Its light fell on empty streets and closed windows, a soft glow that promised peace. But peace was the last thing it had in mind tonight. It started so small you would miss it if you weren't looking. A flicker, a twitch, the kind of thing you blame on tired eyes. People saw it from their balconies. They saw it through their telescopes. The moon seemed to shimmer. It wasn't the clouds, it wasn't the atmosphere. The light itself felt different. It was sharper, colder. It felt less like reflected sunlight and more like something coming from within. Something was waking up behind that rocky face. The shadows on its surface began to shift in ways that didn't make sense, moving against the light instead of with it. The man in the moon was no longer smiling. He was watching. The change was slow, glacially slow, but it was happening. Over the next hour, astronomers noticed it first. The moon was not following its perfect, predictable path. It was off. Just a tiny bit, a fraction of a degree. But in the math of the cosmos, a fraction is an earthquake. It was a cosmic rule being broken right before their eyes. The perfect dance of gravity was being ignored. The moon was moving on its own. It was a subtle rebellion, a quiet declaration of independence from the laws of physics that had held it in place since the beginning of time. It was the first sign that we were not in control. That soft glow on the horizon became a stare, an unnerving, constant gaze. The moon grew brighter, not in a beautiful, poetic way. It was a harsh, clinical light. It bleached the color from the world, turning everything a ghostly white and black. It was the light of an interrogation room. It pressed down on the earth, a physical weight. The shadows it cast were no longer soft and gray. They were sharp, deep, and impossibly dark. People sleeping in their beds felt it. They tossed and turned, their dreams filled with a sense of being watched by a single giant, unblinking eye. The night was no longer a time for rest. It was a time for fear. The news trickled out at first. Confused reports on late-night channels. Scientists with worried faces, trying to explain the anomaly. They used words like gravitational deviation and unexplained luminosity. But their scientific language couldn't hide the fear in their voices. They were trying to put a neat label on something that felt ancient and wrong. On the streets, people started to gather. They pointed their phones at the sky, but the pictures couldn't capture the feeling of being small, the feeling of being prey. The giant eye in the sky seemed to get bigger, not because it was closer, but because everything else felt like it was shrinking. The moon was now visibly off-center, a drunken wanderer in the sky. It drifted slowly, a monstrous titan taking its first steps. The rhythm of the world began to break. Tides surged in the wrong directions. Coastal towns were hit with unexpected waves that crashed over barriers and flooded streets. Animals grew frantic. Dogs barked at the sky for hours, their cries full of terror. Birds flew in confused, chaotic patterns, crashing into buildings and windows as if trying to escape the horrifying light. Nature itself was having a panic attack, reacting to the cosmic predator that had just opened its eye above them. The world was a clock, and its main gear was grinding to a halt. People felt it in their bones. A deep primal dread began to seep into their minds. It was a quiet panic at first, the locking of doors, the closing of curtains, but you can't close a curtain on the sky. The light found its way through the cracks. It was a cold, intelligent light. It felt like it was searching for something, or someone. Whispers started. Theories spread online like a virus. Was it an alien ship? A secret weapon? But the truth felt older and much worse. This wasn't something visiting our world. This was a part of our world, a part we thought was dead, waking up. And it was hungry. The sheer size of it became overwhelming. We had always seen the moon as a distant object. Now, it felt like it was right there, filling the entire sky. Its craters were no longer just pits and marks. They were scars. They were wrinkles on an ancient face. The lines formed a map of something unknowable, a geography of madness. You could see it breathing, a slow rhythmic pulse of light, a soft in and out that made the ground beneath your feet feel unsteady. It was the slow, steady breath of a monster that had been asleep for eons, and our little moment of history was just the sound that had finally woken it up. Under the moon's gaze, the world began to unravel. It wasn't loud, it was quiet. Things just started to go wrong. Streetlights flickered and died one by one, as if the moon were drinking their light. Electronics failed without reason. A phone would go dark. A car engine would refuse to start. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only by the cold, white glare from above. People trapped in their homes listened to the silence, and it was more terrifying than any scream. It was the silence of a world holding its breath, waiting for the jaws to close. The rules were gone. The normal we knew was over. Then came the whispers. They weren't from anywhere. They seemed to come from inside your own head. Faint at first, like the memory of a sound. But they grew. They were thoughts that were not your own. They spoke of vast, empty spaces between the stars. They spoke of time that stretched for so long it made mountains seem like dust. They spoke of hunger, a hunger that had lasted for ages. People clutched their heads, trying to block out the intrusive thoughts, but the whispers were carried on the moonlight. They seeped through your skull, planting seeds of cosmic terror in the soft soil of your mind. The shadows started to move. At first, you'd catch it out of the corner of your eye. The shadow of a tree branch would twist into a shape that looked too much like a hand. The shadow in a doorway would seem to deepen and stretch, as if something were standing there just out of sight. These were not tricks of the light. The shadows had their own life now. They danced and writhed under the moon's command. They were its puppets, its children. They flickered in alleys and stretched across lawns, silent actors in a play of pure dread. They were the moon's agents on Earth, and they were everywhere. Fear became the new air we breathed. It was a constant pressure, a weight on your chest. You couldn't escape it. If you closed your eyes, you saw the bright white circle burned onto the back of your eyelids. If you hid in a basement, you could feel its presence through the concrete and the dirt. It was a psychological attack on a global scale. We were ants under a magnifying glass, and the kid holding it was getting bored. Our small lives, our worries, our plans, they all meant nothing. We were just specks on a rock, and another bigger rock had decided to wake up and look at us. The helplessness was absolute. The night is not ending. The clocks say it should be morning, the sun should be rising. But the sky remains a deep star-filled black, dominated by the single glowing eye of the moon. It has frozen the world in place. It has stopped the dawn. It is rewriting the rules of our reality, and the first rule to go is the promise of daylight. The long night has begun, and there is no telling when or if it will ever end. We are now living in its world, under its time. The cold light continues to press down, a relentless silent scream that echoes in the void where hope used to be. The world is its stage now. The whispers have become clearer. They are no longer just feelings or fragments of thought. They are forming words. A language that is not human, but one that every living thing understands on a primal level. It speaks of cycles. It speaks of harvests. It suggests that this has happened before and will happen again. That planets are fields and civilizations are crops. And the moon is the patient farmer, waiting for the right moment to reap what has grown in its light. The horror is not that we are facing something new. The horror is that we are part of a very old and very terrible pattern. We are trapped. Every person on Earth is a prisoner in a global cell. We look at each other with wide, terrified eyes. There is no one to call. There is no one to fight. How do you fight the moon? How do you reason with a celestial body that has woken from a slumber older than your species? There is nothing to be done but watch, to wait, to listen to the whispers in your own mind and feel the sanity fraying at the edges. The feeling of being small has been replaced by a feeling of being nothing, an insignificant flicker of consciousness in a cosmos that is not empty, but actively hostile. And so we wait. The moon hangs there, massive and alive. Its surface shifts slowly, the craters and valleys rearranging themselves into new, monstrous expressions. It watches us. It knows us. It feels our fear, and it seems to feed on it. The light grows a little brighter with every passing hour. This is not the climax. This is the beginning. The story is not over. The long, slow process of whatever is coming next has only just started. The moon is awake, and it is not going back to sleep, not for a long, long time. We are left to wonder what happens when it finally decides to do more than just watch.